Jason Lloyd's not going to like this one. But as we all know, Shedeur Sanders is somebody who is really dedicated to learning, growing, and has been completely reported that the growth has been phenomenal.
I'm blown away. You know, I think Shedeur has really good vision of the field. You know, he'll say things in practice sometimes. I'll be like, what did you get there? Or I'll see something on the field that doesn't resonate with me. And then when I go back and watch it on video, you know, he might be throwing the deep post versus a post safety look. And
Shedeur Sanders has been one of the most talked about players in Cleveland, but the loudest part of the conversation has not always been football. Browns media has questioned his work ethic, his attitude, his readiness, his film study, his fit in the offense, and whether he is more hype than substance. But now, Shedeur's own quarterback coach, Darrell Colbert Jr, is pushing back against the narratives that have followed him from the draft process into Cleveland. And this time, the argument is not about headlines, it is about the work people are not seeing. That is the whole story right there. For months, people have talked about Shedeur like they already know who he is. Some call him a distraction, some say he does not study enough, some act like his confidence is a problem. But Colbert has been around Shedeur for years. He has trained him, watched him grow, watched how he prepares, and watched how he handles pressure. So when he speaks on Shedeur, it hits different. He is not guessing from the outside, he is speaking from the work.
So I'll ask you about Shedeur and all the guys, but for you, what has this been like? I mean, you got Cam Ward, you got Shedeur, potentially the top two quarterbacks, top two picks in the draft. What's that been like for you?
Man, it's been a blessing. Just kind of seeing these guys, their dreams coming true, right? Being able to, come out here and compete and do the things that they do when we're working out.
That is important because Colbert is not some random trainer trying to protect a famous client. He has worked with top quarterbacks. He has been around Cam Ward. He has been around Shedeur. He understands mechanics, movement, timing, confidence, and how quarterback development really works. So when Browns media tries to turn Shedeur's personality into a weakness, Colbert pushes the conversation back to football. The question should not be whether Shedeur talks with confidence. The question should be whether he can process, throw with timing, move in the pocket, and improve inside the system. And that is where the false narratives start to fall apart. One of the biggest knocks on Shedeur has always been that he holds the ball too long or takes too many sacks. But Colbert's point has always been more layered than that. At Colorado, Shedeur played behind shaky protection. That environment can create habits. It can make a quarterback drift. It can make him try to survive instead of operate cleanly. But bad habits are not the same as bad talent. They are things you coach, rep, and correct.
Shedeur Sanders has a good arm, but when you have a good arm, you need to make sure you transfer your weight from your backside to your front side. He's doing a much better job of that. So yeah, I see his poise, his control, his ability to get him into good run plays. They're doing a lot of those things already in camp where he's killing a bad run play one side, getting it to the other side, or changing it completely. So there's a lot of things going on.
That is the kind of breakdown that matters. It doesn't deny the flaws, it explains them. Shedeur did need to clean up his footwork. He did need to step up more instead of drifting backward. He did need to trust timing more. But the people actually watching the details are saying those things are improving. That is why this debate is getting so heated. The old criticism is still being repeated, but the new evidence is starting to say something different. This is where Browns media has to be careful. Criticism is fair. Nobody should be scared to say Shedeur has work to do. But criticism without context turns into a narrative. If someone says he can't play, they need to explain why. If someone says he doesn't study, they need proof. If someone says he's a distraction, they need to show how that has affected the locker room. Otherwise, it just becomes noise.
I've said all along, I think Shedeur's presence will be a hindrance to some guy. Not somebody's going to take the job. They pay really well, and there's only 32 of the job. Somebody will take it. But there are candidates out there who will look at this and say, nope, I want nothing to do with that. How could you? Look at everything that Kevin went through over the last year with Shedeur and some of the stupidity and nonsense that was out there. What coach would want to sign up for that?
That is the exact kind of media take Shedeur supporters are pushing back against. Because if the argument is only, he's too much, then what does that actually mean? Is he late to meetings? Is he not learning the offense? Is he not working? Is he not respected by teammates? Those are football questions. But too often, the criticism sounds vague. It attacks the idea of Shedeur more than the actual player. Colbert's defense of Shedeur matters because he speaks to the player behind the noise. He has seen the hours, he has seen the training, he has seen how Shedeur handles coaching. And when he pushes back against labels like arrogance or brash, he's really saying something deeper. Confidence is not the same as entitlement. A quarterback has to believe he belongs. If he doesn't, he has no chance. The problem is that Shedeur's confidence gets judged differently because of his name, his father, and the spotlight around him.
Last year, when I was trying to kind of figure out who fit who Shedeur was, and I think that was a great fit. You know, just the way Joe Burrow is always confident, always calm. Like Shedeur is always this. He's one of the guys who's literally always that. He never gets too high, never gets too low. Joe does a great job of being accurate and understanding the system. And then what I think the comparison really works is, you know, what was that, the year that.
That is why the QB coach angle is so strong. Colbert is not asking people to crown Shedeur. He's asking people to evaluate him correctly. Watch the feet, watch the base, watch the eyes, watch how fast he moves through progressions. Watch whether he's throwing to the right spot, not just whether every pass is perfect. That is quarterback development. It is not always clean at first, but if the process is improving, the player is improving. And recent Browns reports have started to line up with that. Nathan Zegura, who has access to the team and sees more practice than most people, has talked about Shedeur progressing a lot this offseason. Mary Kay Cabot has said Shedeur came on strong late in OTAs and minicamp. Others have pointed to better command, better timing, and better operation of the offense. So the question becomes simple. If all these people are seeing improvement, why are some voices still talking like nothing has changed?
I think Shedeur has come on so strong in the last few weeks that it's making them think, maybe we should see what he can do in training camp before we decide that perhaps Deshaun Watson might be QB1 on the depth chart.
That click is important because it gives the audience a second source, not just Shedeur's personal coach. Mary Kay is not saying Shedeur is perfect. She is not saying he already won the job, but she is saying he improved enough to make the Browns keep watching. That matters, because when the narrative is Shedeur cannot handle the offense, and then reporters say he's becoming more efficient inside the offense, that is not a small update. That is a direct challenge to the old story. And the same thing applies to the he doesn't work narrative. If Shedeur is constantly training, constantly getting extra reps, constantly working with his QB coach, and constantly trying to improve his mechanics, then the lazy criticism starts looking weak. You can still question the final result. You can still say he has to prove it in pads, but you cannot act like there is no work happening.
Man, I think from the learning coverages standpoint, man, I think he's one of the guys who understands coverages at a great level. And I think that just goes from, you know, who his dad is. You know, he's been learning coverages for a long time, and he's been around some guys who have taught him a lot. So he understands it. He understands the game from a whole different lens that a lot of people don't get to understand it from.
That is the part people miss. Development doesn't happen on Twitter. It happens in those boring reps nobody wants to talk about. Drops, base, balance, timing, eyes, release, pocket movement, repeating the same details until they become natural. That is what Colbert has been building with Shedeur for years. So when Browns media tries to reduce the conversation to personality, fans are right to ask for more football. The Browns' own situation makes this even more important. Deshaun Watson still has questions. Dillon Gabriel is still trying to prove where he fits. Taylon Green is a project, and Shedeur is the only quarterback in the room who keeps driving the biggest conversation. That does not mean the job belongs to him, but it does mean he deserves an evaluation based on what he's doing now, not just what people decided about him months ago.
I think just at the NFL level, he's got to come in and, be more of a point guard, a processor of the offense, and just, the point man and get the ball out quickly. And that will really do wonders for him and his game.
That is where the whole video lands. Colbert is not saying Shedeur doesn't have to prove it. He's saying the way people talk about him is too shallow. There is a real quarterback here, A player with confidence, skill, toughness, and flaws that can be coached. A player who has been questioned, doubted, and labeled, but keeps working through the noise. And now, the more football people break down the details, the harder it becomes to keep repeating the same old narratives. If Shedeur fails, let it be because he failed on the field. If he wins the job, let it be because he earned it on the field. But do not bury him under fake labels before the real competition even plays out. That is what Colbert is pushing back against. Not criticism, not accountability. The lazy stuff, the personality attacks, the vague claims. The idea that confidence means arrogance or that early flaws mean a quarterback cannot grow. Browns media can keep debating, that's their job, but the evaluation has to evolve with the player. And right now, the reports, the training, and the coaching voices are all saying the same thing. Shedeur Sanders is not the same quarterback people tried to box in months ago. He's working, he's improving, and his QB coach just reminded everyone that the truth is not found in the loudest narrative. It's found in the reps.